Marinero, another game, another loss, this time to the hands of the Vancouver Canucks. The Canadiens lost by a score of 2-1 in front of their fans versus a team just as bad as them, but tonight was a little bit better. Joining me is Brendan Kelly from the Montreal Gazette. What the puck? Everyone's fired. What are you going to talk about now?
You know what? That's it. It's been the joke for 2 days now, ever since the news broke. Like, what are you going to talk about? I'll start ragging on the new guys. Give me a couple of days.
You know what? I'll put my money on you on that one. The Sick Podcast brought to you by Cherry River Hard Seltzer. Only 90 calories, natural flavors, no preservatives. Now available in Quebec grocery stores and the beer store. Listen, based on everything that happened on Saturday night, Scott Mellanby resigning. We got word that Canadiens asked to speak to asked permission to speak to Jeff Gorton. We didn't even talk about the game. Based on what happened today, Jeff Molson's presser earlier today, yesterday he relieved Marc Bergevin, Trevor Timmins, and Paul Wilson of his duties. I don't think we're going to talk much about the game tonight either. So let's just go back. Let me get your take. You've been calling for Jeff Molson to be active for quite some time. You were saying that he was missing in action. We know what he was doing now. He was preparing the plan. He was preparing the future. He signed Jeff Gorton as VP of Hockey Ops. What do you think?
I say kudos to Jeff Molson. You know what, Tony? It's like, we had that discussion about, you hate the Habs. I don't hate the Habs. I love the Habs. I criticize Jeff Molson because I don't like what Jeff Molson's doing. When Jeff Molson does something that I like, I say, hey, he did the right thing. He took a tough decision. Maybe he took too long to fire Marc Bergevin. I've been calling for him to do that for 5 years, so I'm not going to sit here today and complain about Jeff Molson. He did the right thing. He fired Marc Bergevin. He fired Trevor Timmins, and he fired Paul Wilson. Those were absolutely the right things to do. And even better, guess what? He hired Jeff Gorton. Now, I don't know how it's going to work out with Jeff Gorton, but what I like about that hire is he went and hired an American. Not that it's an American that counts, but he went and, I assume, went to get the guy that he thought was the best guy for the job. And it's a little bit of a sleight of hand because he's going to have a GM who's bilingual and will probably be a francophone former Canadiens player. He'll probably be Daniel Briere. And he'll have a GM who can talk to the media. And meanwhile, he got who he thinks is the best guy. Because you know what? We need a GM who's been around, who knows how to do the job, who's done the job. And I'm all for hiring francophones, but you tell me, is there a francophone candidate out there who's been a GM in the National Hockey League and is ready to take this job? Yeah, there's one guy. His name is Julien Brisebois. And guess what? He's general manager of the team that just won the last 2 Stanley Cups, and he's not coming to Montreal. So,
no, as a matter of fact, they extended him for 5 years, so he's not coming to Montreal. Exactly. But I got to tell you this, I'm a big fan of Jeff Gorton. I think it's a fantastic hire. I take a look at his track record, what he did with the Boston Bruins. I think is absolutely fantastic being part of that Bruins team as an interim general manager that drafted Phil Kessel, Brad Marchand, Milan Lucic, that traded Andrew Raycroft for Tuukka Rask, that signed Zdeno Chara as an unrestricted free agent, signed Mark Savard as an unrestricted free agent. Was assistant general manager there for quite some time. Then he ended up being a pro scout with the New York Rangers. And he ended up being their general manager for a month shy of 6 years. And, with the New York Rangers, he signed Artemi Panarin, who's arguably their best player, who's a winger. He traded for Mika Zibanejad, who's their number 1 center. He traded for Ryan Strome, who's their number 2 center. He traded for and signed and traded up for all 4 of their top 4 defensemen. He was part of that rebuild letter. He was part of that rebuild. He traded away some big contracts. He revamped the New York Rangers. I applaud Jeff Molson. I think it's a fantastic hire.
And also, given the situation where we have here, where you are going to have to, whether you want to use the word rebuild, you're going to have to, one way or the other, mega reset, reconstruct. You've got Well, we've been watching these games. I mean, mostly. I mean, trying to hide under the couch while watching them. This team is really, really bad, and there's not much to work with here. So he's got a big task ahead of him, and a lot of it will be like it essentially will be a rebuild. You know, you got to.
Well, I hope so. I mean, listen, even if it's for short term, right now, it looks like the rebuild is happening organically because they're just not a very good team and they're just losing the majority of their games. And the more they lose, the better chance at a better draft selection they get. So the better it is. Hey, the last time I spoke with you, I asked you if you had called Jeff Molson. You told me you hadn't talked to him in quite some time. I encouraged you to call him. I have to ask you, did you call him?
You know, everything that you saw today at that press conference, I mean, I just typed up all that stuff, Tony. I mean, that's no, I'm kidding. I didn't call him. I still, you know what? I've known Jeff Molson for a very long time, and I'm telling you, the last couple of times I saw him, it was, I think the word frosty comes to mind. But I do think I've said for years now. You know, I've been a big critic of Jeff Molson as well as a big critic of Marc Bergevin. And I said, eventually, we will arrive on the same page. And that kind of happened today. And I think that eventually,
but you didn't call him, though.
Did I call him? No, I haven't called him yet. I got a lot of stuff going on here, Tony. I don't
hold on a second. I'm sure if he'd like to go for coffee, you would go. Do you want me to set it up? Yes or no?
Yeah,
I can have you there. I can have him there. I can have you guys have a coffee, maybe shake hands.
I don't need you to set it up, Tony. I can set that up all by myself.
Yeah, but you don't think he'll show up?
He probably would, but I mean, it could be a little tense.
I'm sure he'd show up. He's a nice guy.
Jeff's a totally nice guy. And
have you ever been personal with him in your column? Have your shots ever been personal?
At a certain point, I mean, I get a little overheated at times, and I think it did get a little personal at points.
Don't do that. Don't do that. Don't get personal. Just be fair. There's no reason to get personal.
No, but personal in the sense of I get emotional. You know, it's my Scottish-Irish heritage, and it comes out. But I've always said, like I said, is that I always believe that at the end of the day, as harsh as I am as a critic of Jeff Molson, he's never going to say it. He probably will never be nice to me again. But he comes round to my point of view. You tell me, my point of view for 5 years was what? Fire Marc Bergevin. Well, guess what? He fired Marc Bergevin.
Well, Brendan, if that's your logic, eventually you were going to be right. Marc Bergevin was going to work there forever.
He might have walked away. He probably would have. Tony, seriously, and by the way,
he's going to walk away from $3+ million.
Of course, he's going to walk. He could. You know what's interesting about the story today? I was thinking about the time, the kind of timeline that Jeff Molson was saying. He said before the playoffs, which we knew, Elliot Friedman had reported at the time. Jeff Molson confirmed today that he was in talks to extend. No, but
this is good.
He was in talks to extend Jeff Molson's contract. Then they go into the playoffs.
Bergevin's contract, you mean?
Bergevin's contract.
Yeah.
They go into the playoffs. First 4 games is terrible. Then we go on this incredible. The Habs go on this incredible run, and he says we're in talks again after the playoffs to extend the contract. Doesn't happen. Doesn't say why it doesn't happen. And then he says in September, I have a revelation, and I'm thinking, I need to think about this more. You know what I'm thinking, Tony?
Hold on a second. Before he said that, I thought he said something very interesting. He said, in September, after I have a decision to make, I give Marc Bergevin a long-term contract or I wait. So I decide to wait, which led me to believe that they got to the Cup final. And what it sounded like was they got to the Cup final, and then Bergevin was holding the cards and said, I want a 5-year deal, and this is how much I want. And Jeff wasn't willing to give him a 5-year deal.
I told you that last time we talked, and you didn't believe me. But I'll tell you what I'm thinking today, Tony, from what I heard from Jeff Molson today.
Yeah.
What changed between the end of the Stanley Cup Finals and the beginning of September, was there a lot of hockey games played?
Hold on a second. Can I tell you what? Can I hold on?
Let me finish my thought.
I know what the cherry on the sundae was. Logan Mailloux.
Logan Mailloux. And so that happened, and Jeff Molson at the time said he signed off on that. But you know what? My theory, and it really sort of was confirmed by, or not confirmed, but it suggested that there's some truth to it, is he was deeply, deeply embarrassed by that. And you know what?
Big time. Well, I think it's one of the reasons it's one of the reasons why Paul Wilson lost his job.
100%. Because Paul Wilson did not prepare Jeff Molson for that. That's Paul Wilson's job. And you know what? Jeff goes to a dinner party, and someone says to him, someone he respects says, you know what, Jeff? I don't like to meddle in your business. You're the president of the Canadiens, but I just want to tell you, I got 2 daughters, and that made me sick. What did Gary Bettman say about that? You remember what Gary Bettman said? I don't have it in front of me, but it was worse to the effect he was disgusted by. He was like, there was a visceral reaction to that thing. And I don't think Jeff Molson was ready for that. And why was he not ready? Because the people around him didn't prepare him for them. And Mark Bergevin said, don't worry about it, Jeff. It'll be okay. We can get this guy. He's a good player. It'll blow over. And it didn't blow over.
Yeah, but at the same time, Jeff should have known better.
Absolutely. 100%.
Let's be honest here. I mean, we can all make mistakes, but he should have known better. Now, having said that, Paul Wilson, I think he lost his job because he was very close to Mark Bergevin, because he was like an ally to Mark Bergevin, because if they were going to start fresh and a brand new start, I don't think they would have wanted anyone reporting anything back to Bergevin and stuff like that. It was a new fresh start. It was a new slate. I get that, but I think the Logan Mailloux stuff, that I think Jeff leaned on Paul Wilson in a case like that to say, you know what, I probably could have messed up and I probably could have slipped because I don't understand the PR ramifications, but you, who makes a living out of that, had to. I think that's probably the way it went down.
But that was, you know what, that was an intriguing one for me. Firstly, how often do you see this, Tony, where you fire the general manager, the head of scouting or whatever the official title is, and the head of PR? Very rare that the PR guy is thrown in there. And remember who Paul Wilson—
Very rare, especially since they brought in that PR guy to replace the other PR guy that they didn't want.
And where did Paul Wilson come from?
National.
Who owns National?
Molson.
Andrew Molson. So he was, I wrote the day that the week that they hired Paul Wilson, I wrote a column saying, you know what? Jeff Molson's talking about transparency, and the guy that he hires as the new head of PR to be more transparent is the ultimate old boy, because this guy was right inside. He's right there with Jeff Molson. He was a guy who represented Patrick Roy way back in 1995. He worked for the breweries, and so he was like the ultimate inside guy, very tied to the Molson family. So the fact that he gets turfed so quickly, I was actually kind of shocked by that.
By the way, he was asked about it today, and I think he said something about they have to improve their relationship with the media, right?
He threw him under the bus, big time. Threw him under the bus. He said, I want to thank Paul Wilson for his service, but we really have to improve our relationship with the media. And you know what?
I always had a good relationship with Paul Wilson, by the way. I don't know about you, but I never had a problem.
I have a terrible relationship with Paul Wilson.
Why?
Did I not tell you my story? I write this column. I write when he gets hired. I write a column saying, I just said, and I don't know Paul Wilson, personally at all at that point, and I say, Jeff Molson's talking about transparency, and he gets this guy from National Public Relations. The guy has been a corporate guy forever and ever, very tied to the Molson family. I get this email from Paul Wilson. I'm sitting in my backyard trying to relax, 8 o'clock, a Saturday night. I'm having a barbecue, and I get this furious email. And I'm like, whoa, that's a little weird. So the next morning, I write him an email, and I say, hi, Paul. I'm very surprised by the tone of your email.
Why? What did he say?
I say, let's have lunch, whatever. Like, I'll be happy to talk. Blast me back again. So, well, you know the old saying, Tony? Never get in a fight with a journalist. So what do I do? What do you think I do with that?
You wrote more columns.
I write it up. So of course I write it up, and then then Paul calls me. He's like, "Can we have lunch?" He takes me down to the tavern in 1909. Very nice lunch. And he starts the lunch by saying, "Brendan, I talked to this friend of mine, and she says, you're a fantastic journalist. You're like, you know, you do all this stuff on French culture and hockey." And so he tried to hit me on the head with a 2x4. That, by the way, does not work with me, Tony. So don't try it.
Okay.
Then he tries to be nice to me, like tries to butter. That doesn't work. Nothing works with me. What can I tell you? So that was my Paul Wilson. I mean.
And in the end, you got a free lunch out of it.
It was very nice.
What a mooch.
I'm a journalist. What can I tell you?
I never had a problem with Paul Wilson. As a matter of fact, I'm going to tell you something else. I never had a problem with Marc Bergevin. I never had a problem with Trevor Timmins. As a matter of fact, I want to wish them well, and I'm going to tell you why. And by the way, I do think their time was up. Okay, I think their time was up. I think the Canadians needed a fresh start. I mean, did they do some good things? Yes, but at the end of the day, one was there for 19 and a half years. The other one was there for 9.5 years. When you translate that to Montreal, it's like being, you know, when you think about it, and that's in Montreal, it's like being 25 and a half years somewhere else and 14 and a half years somewhere else. Having said that, I think they'll recharge the batteries. I think Bergevin will bounce back. I think Timmins will bounce back. But, you know, some of the best conversations, some of the best interviews and conversations I had were actually with Bergevin and with Timmins. So I'll miss them in a way.
No, you got along great with those guys. But honestly, the other thing that really jumped out at me.
You want to know why I got along with them?
You're a nice guy.
Ask me why.
You're a nice guy. Why'd you get along with them, Tony?
Because I'm the best.
Okay. I mean, I thought I didn't need to say that. But I thought the thing that he said about Timmins also, so he throws Wilson under the bus big time in the press conference.
Yeah.
And then Timmins, they said, "Why'd you fire Timmins?" And he says, 2 number 3 overall picks. And they both did not pan out. And you know what? I thought that was great that he said that, because I've been saying that for years. You get 2 number 3 overall. You get Galchenyuk and you get KK. And they both don't work out.
Yeah.
Both mistakes.
Now, he said we had 3 picks in the top 9 in the last, during Bergevin's tenure. 3 picks in the top 9, 2 number 3s and a 9th. And none of them are with our team. Now, having said that, I don't want to make any excuses for Trevor Timmins, because I understand Jeff's point.
Don't say what you're going to say.
Hold on a second. I understand Jeff's point. And from day one, I said that I would have drafted Brady Tkachuk instead of Kotkaniemi. And that was a mistake. Having said that,
in the sports business,
the Galchenyuk draft was a bad draft. There was Morgan Riley that was good. There was Philip Forsberg that was good. I'm not so sure if Hurdle was in that one. Anyway, there's not too many. There's not too many. They ended up, ultimately, they have Josh Anderson for Alex Galchenyuk. And it's not Trevor Timmins' fault that they traded Mikhail Sergachev for Jonathan Drouin. I mean, let's be honest here.
The only argument you've got there is the Sergachev one. Galchenyuk was a mistake, and Kotkaniemi was a mistake.
No, listen, don't get me wrong. There's too many first-round picks, unfortunately, that didn't pan out, right? David Fisher didn't pan out. Michael McCarron didn't pan out. Jared Tenorti didn't pan out. Louis LeBlanc didn't pan out. Nikita Sherbak didn't pan out. The list goes on and on, okay? Having said that, they never really had a good development program, so we don't know what these players could have become.
Yes, we do.
And for that, I'll always give
Fisher's he would have been a great player.
Fisher, no. They should have drafted Giroux. They made a mistake there. Noah Juleson never panned out, but he got hurt.
Jury's in on that one. I mean, Brady Tkachuk is a stud. He's the captain. He's a genuine star player. Kotkaniemi, what's he on the 4th line in Carolina?
Listen, I would have drafted Brady Tkachuk even if I never watched him play. His father was great. His brother was great. There's a good chance that he was going to be pretty good as well. Exactly. Anyway, all of these players that we talked about, all of their teams that they play for, any team, any jersey, sportbuffshop.com for all of your officially licensed sports apparel and more. And our SICK merchandise, by the way, use code SICK15 for 15% off on all of their items. Okay, now, Jeff Gorton's the guy But a general manager who can communicate in English and French is very important to Jeff Molson. Jeff Gorton will hire a general manager. Jeff Molson says that in this market, it became apparent to him that you need two people to share the responsibilities and to work together. What does all that tell you?
It tells you that the new general manager of the Montreal Canadiens today and going forward, because we learn that he has a long-term contract, is Jeff Gorton.
I agree with you 100%.
Would be the GM, but they're going to pick, what I'm hearing more and more is Daniel Briere, but maybe it'll be Matthew Darche.
We'll see.
It'll be
whatever it is. It's very, listen.
It'll be a former Montreal Canadiens player who speaks French, who will appear on RDS and TVH Sport and 98.5 and will do the thing in French. And I fully expect the French media to eventually figure out that this is a bit of a Trojan horse or sleight of hand or whatever you want. And
listen, I think they figured it out already. I think they figured it out already. I think it's become pretty apparent that Jeff Gorton, with the wealth of experience that he has, and the fact that he signed a long-term contract, that Jeff Gorton will be the GM without the title. With all due respect to who the next GM is going to be, and I'll stick with that until proven otherwise. But on the surface, that's what it looks like. And by the way, it's pretty creative from Jeff Molson, by the way.
I applaud that. I mean, it's. I think that it's a crazy situation. I totally am very sympathetic to the idea that you have to communicate to your fans in Quebec in the language of Quebec, which is French. But at the same time, it's okay. So you're looking for a general manager, right? Is there a general manager who speaks French? Like, who's been a general manager in the league? No. So, I mean, it's, what are you going to do? And you get a guy like, look, if you can get a Lou Lamoriello, if you can get a Jeff Gorton, if you can get, if you can get a Ray Shiro, you need someone who knows how it works. And it's just, you know what? At a certain point, you just get so fed up with every coach is a rookie coach or a retread. Every GM, including Marc Bergevin, is a rookie GM. I mean, at a certain point, I was hearing someone talking on French radio today, and they were polling Francophones as to, how they felt. Was it important for the GM to be Francophone? And 2/3 of them were saying, no, what we want is a GM who can help us create a winning team. And I fundamentally believe that most people in Quebec, French and English, believe that they want a coach and for the most part, not the French media. The French media want a French-speaking general manager. Oh, the French media, of course. But
and they're actually upset that Jeff Molson went out to Massachusetts, or he went to New York to hire a VP of hockey ops that is originally from Massachusetts. They would have wanted it to be somebody from La Belle Province.
But Chris Nyland's very happy.
Because he's from Massachusetts? Yeah. Listen, I think he's a fantastic candidate. I think Jeff got it right. I'm all for hiring somebody who's French speaking if the qualifications are there. There's no one available right now that has the qualifications of a Jeff Gorton. And so I think it's very. What did you make of when Jeff Molson said that they want to be more inclusive and add some diversity? Because I know what's the first thing that came to my head was, there's going to be a position that's going to open up here, and it's going to go to a woman. Were you thinking the same thing, or?
I wasn't, but I've heard that discussion since. I mean, when I heard diversity, I was thinking more post BLM and from other cultural communities. And honestly, I think it's great that he talked that up, because I remember back in that press conference when he gave the press conference during COVID and the Black Lives Matter, and he kind of poo-pooed that whole thing. And so I thought it was nice that he was taking a more strong point of view. And I think it's very important. I mean, I think that if you look at hockey, I mean, I remember when my kids were playing hockey, you would look at the people who were playing hockey, and it was very diverse. And then when you get up to the National Hockey League level, both in terms of the players, but also in terms of the management, is not diverse at all. So I think that's a great thing. So I was thinking it was more that in terms of bringing in visible minorities. If it's a woman, I mean, look, he's already got a very prominent female executive within Le Groupe CH as well.
Yeah.
So that's I think that's all very positive, though it's just words. Be nice to see some actual action happening.
Don't forget the Toronto Maple Leafs have Haley Wickenheiser as part of their front office staff. So
it'd be great to see Montreal doing a bit of the same thing. And it was interesting to see Jeff Molson saying that it's really in hockey operations, not really necessarily the rest of the company, where they need to do something in that direction. So I thought that was very positive. And
he did say that the team that they have is better than the way they're playing right now. And by the way, that's on the coach.
The coach, I wrote last week that the coach has to go, but you know what? The coach is not going. Now that all of this has happened, they'll keep Ducharme, because you know what, Tony? The more they lose, I went back and looked at
100%. If the plan is a rebuild, and obviously the more you lose, the better chance you have a better draft selection, keep the coaching staff as it is.
Do the right thing for right.
And by the way, Alex Burrows' power play, which after 24 games, 6 wins and 18 losses for the Canadiens, is at a rate of 12.9%. This is the worst power play I've seen, not only covering the Canadiens as a member of the media, but actually even going back to when I used to watch them when I was a fan of 10, 15, and 20 years old. This is the worst power play I've ever seen. And a certain sector of the media, radio silence, zita, 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 not a word. If this was Kirk Muller, they would have crucified him by now.
It's funny, and Kirk Muller, how's that power play looking in Calgary?
Well, it's better than Montreal's. I'll tell you that right now.
Better than Montreal. You
know the power play for Les Cobras de Parc-Ouellet de Villassal is better than the Canadiens right now.
Again, don't diss the Cobras, but it's the coaching is absolutely terrible. And I'll tell you one thing is that Dominic Ducharme, and they'll keep him. They will definitely keep him because they want to lose as many games as possible now.
Well, they're also going to keep him because they're paying Claude Julien already. You know that as well as I do.
Julien. He's getting paid $5 million to sit in Point Claire and watch TV. I might as well have him coach the team. But the coaching, what's absolutely and 100% clear. Did you see the second goal tonight when Josh
Kirk Muller's power play, to answer your question, is ranked 7th in the National Hockey League at 24.6. Dominic Ducharme, Alex Burrows' power play with the Canadiens is ranked 30th at 12.5.
But you know what? But just to take that up for a second, it's interesting that when Kirk Muller was running the power play here, it was pretty bad. It's not as bad as it was this year. And then he gets to Calgary and it's better. But the thing about
it's never been worse than 15%, ever.
But the thing that's happened this year, and it's abundantly clear to me, is the veteran players have given up on this coach. They do not respect Dominic Ducharme.
They've given up on the season, period. Brendan,
100%.
They're demoralized. They know they're not as good as last year. They were without Price for way too long, without Edmondson for way too long, without Byron for way too long. Shea Weber's unofficially retired. They lost Philip Deneau. They lost Thomas Tatar. They lost Eric Stahl. They lost Corey Perry. They were a one-hit wonder. They had 1 year in them to go for it.
They didn't have even 1 year. They had about 3 weeks or 6 weeks in them. Tony, think about it. And Jeff said that today, which I thought was really interesting. He said, my thought process was, we had a terrible season it was a terrible season last year. They scraped their way into the playoffs. They were absolutely horrifying.
They were hot for a month after Game 4 versus Toronto and until they beat the Vegas Golden Knights. And then they started cold again versus Tampa.
I hate to say it, but I kind of love to say it. It was a fluke. It's as simple as that.
Yeah, you still got to do it, though. But, yeah, for the most part, it's hard to disagree with that.
How great was that, right?
Hard to disagree with that.
After they beat Vegas, it's unreal. But
okay, almost because we have to say something about the game. Elias Peterson scores on Jake Allen on a one-timer. Boom, top corner, in and out. It was beautiful. 8 minutes into period number 1. Ryan Poehling on a pass from Jonathan Drouin. He goes to the net. And who would have thought that Ryan Poehling would be one of the Montreal Canadiens' top goal scorers? He scored his 4th. Connor Garland takes advantage of a Josh Anderson giveaway in period number 2. The Canadiens get outshot 42-34. Vancouver goes 1 for 2 on the power play. The Canadiens go 0 for 2 on the power play. And that's the difference in the hockey game. The Canadiens lose by a score of 2-1. Statistically, the second worst record in the division, second worst in the conference, and third worst in the National Hockey League. But Jeff Molson fired everyone, and Brendan Kelly is happy again. Until you and I, it's nice to see that smile. Pick up the phone, give him a call. He's a good guy.
I'd be happy to. You know what?
I'll go for a coffee with you.
I'd be happy to do it. You know what?
Better yet, tell him you want to go for a Molson.
I don't know if I can tell that story. Actually, I had a good.
Just tell it.
Okay, so we're at this hockey tournament in Quebec City.
Yeah.
And both of our kids are on the same team.
Okay.
And there's this party with all the dads, and we're out on the porch, you know.
Okay.
And so I'm going for a beer, and I'm not. It's not my go-to beer normally.
Okay.
Right. I like more of the micro beers, just like you. Right. So I'm going for like a Saint Ambroise or whatever, and I'm reaching into the cooler.
I prefer Cherry River Hard Seltzer myself, but anyway, go ahead.
Of course you do.
Yeah.
Just by chance. But so I'm putting my hand into the cooler to go for that St. Ambroise IPA, and Jeff looks at me and he says, "What? You don't like Molson?" So I had a Molson beer because I'm like that kind of guy, you know. So and
that's
then
the story you didn't want to tell. That's the story you didn't want to tell.
Yeah, it's not much of a story. I know. I mean, I'm just like it's. I don't want to get Jeff in any kind of trouble, you know.
Yeah, Jeff's a good guy. Tell him you want to go for a Molson. He'll be happy.
I'd be happy.
All right. I like seeing that smile on your face. What do you want to say? What do you want to say? What do you want to say to Marc Bergevin? Do you at all feel bad about some of the columns you wrote in the past?
No, I think that he. What did he say? C'est pas un long fleuve tranquille. It's not a tranquil river. I mean, listen, he gets paid a lot of money. And at the end of the day, listen, I have nothing. I've never even spoke to Marc Bergevin in my life. I have no personal thoughts, Marc Bergevin. But I think you have to say at the end of the day, his era was a failure. So I've been saying that since the PK Subban trade, and I'm consistent. I don't think it worked out.
It's funny you thought that one of his best trades ended up being a failure in his tenure. But anyway.
One of his best trades. You are such a funny man, Tony. I love it, man. When you crack wise like that.
I don't know. That's what I thought.
Yeah. We've been through that. We were ready. You finally admitted I was right last time.
I admitted you were right?
Yes. How much?
I have a question. Listen to me. Yeah. I have a question for you. With all due respect to PK Subban, who had a very good career. It's not over yet, but it's almost over. Yeah. Did they make it to the Cup final last year with PK Subban instead of Shea Weber? Good night, Brendan. Brendan, good night.
We're talking in 2021, but did
Brendan, do they make it to the Stanley Cup final last year if they had PK Subban and not Shea Weber? Just say the answer that everyone knows, and then we can say good night. Yes or no?
What happened in the 2017 playoffs?
In 2017, I weighed 60 pounds less than I do now.
Is that true?
Probably 50. But I did get I did order a treadmill. You'll hear about it in the next couple of weeks.
I'm glad to hear that, but I would say that.
And a bike.
You kind of put me off my argument for a second. Here's another question for you, Tony. Was there any way in the world, was it at all possible, was there any possibility that the Montreal Canadiens were going to beat the Tampa Bay Lightning this spring?
Very unlikely.
No, it was not going to happen. So whatever. Who cares about not winning? It's sport.
Now, and having said that, at the end of the day, even though I think the trade turned out pretty good for him, if I was going to trade PK Subban, I still would have tried to get a number one centerman in return. Because at the end of the day, I go to hockey games to watch centermen set up plays and score goals and pick up 80 points a year. I go watch guys score 40 goals or 45 goals. I don't go to watch a goalie's still papillon and his left-right lateral movement or his hybrid style, and I don't go watch a defenseman block shots, okay? So on that, we can agree, and let's end it here.
We need a star. We need a star player, and we need, for Jeff Molson and the rest of the CH organization to say, we can have someone who's bigger than the Habs. If we got Connor McDavid, we'd say, Connor, you got to play defensive. You got to play the 200-foot game. Forget that. Let's have some fun. It's just a game, right? Let's have some fun.
Not so sure they would be like that with Connor McDavid, but
yeah, what they do with Guy Lafleur? How'd that work out?
They sat him on the bench for the first 3 years, and then he became Guy Lafleur.
And then afterwards, with Jacques Lemaire, they ran him out of town.
Yeah, Jacques Lemaire tried to change his game, and he said, you know what? I don't want to play this kind of hockey. I'm going to retire.
He quit hockey way too early because the Habs are a repressive organization.
And then he came back to play for the New York Rangers, a game at the Montreal Forum, and scored 2 goals versus the Canadiens.
Fantastic. The Flower.
Shoot scars! What a goal by the Flower! See you, Brendan.
Okay, see you, Tony.
It's a sick podcast. Have a good one. Until next time. What a goal by the Flower!